I have made some bad mistakes in my time, but that's the breaks, and I'll bet I've had way more fun than you.
So here it is, my SainSmart Genmitsu 3018 CNC router. Let's take it out of the box and see what's in here. Okay, so inside the box we have the frame and support and lead screws, bearing blocks, power supply, all the hardware, the cutting bits, a little brush, ooh, a thumb drive, isn't that nice? We've got the control board, tools, all the wiring, spindle, piece to hold the spindle, and our motors, and whatever's in here. Oh, our offline controller, and our user manual. Okay, the first thing I like to do when I'm building something is to go through the manual, look at the parts list, and make sure all the parts are actually in the kit. I'll do that off camera and then come back. Okay, I've taken everything out of the packaging and marked it against the manifest here. Everything appears to be where it belongs. Okay, I also marked the bags of what was in them. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I don't like to dump it all out on the table and then have to dig through and try to look back in the instructions to figure out what screw is what. They're right here marked in the bags already. And I'm only going to take the parts I need for each step out and lay them out. I'm not going to throw everything out on my table. Okay, the best thing you can do is have a nice flat level surface, and I put a old towel on mine to keep things from bouncing off and rolling away easily, landing on the ground. I'm outside of my driveway. Only quiet spot I've got in the entire house to put this together. Okay, first step is the base installation. 2 sides, front, rear, 2 rods, and these sliders. 2 rods are 290 millimeters. Double check that with tape measure to make sure I have the right ones. And I even decided to go through all the threaded pieces and check the thread to make sure they were actually threaded correctly and I don't run into any problems. So let's get this started. Make sure you put your sliders on, they're a mirror image of each other. And these holes are on the outside edge against the sides. Okay, step 2 is rather daunting. There's 30 or 40 parts, but all you need to do is lay them out as they are in the picture. Go to the list and start with your lead screw, your nut set, your spring, step motor, screws for step motor, coupler, bolts, nuts, and make sure you have the wrenches ready also. Easier than it looks. So let's start out by putting the nut on the step motor. Okay, I had a little trouble with this sleeve here. The brass bushing inside here that's shredded didn't want to accept the rod at first. Had to just be careful and put the rod in, make sure I didn't strip the threads on it. If you need to, run a tap through it. If you don't have a tap, maybe you can find a machine shop nearby that can do it for you. I also cheated and just chucked it in my 3/8 drill and ran it through to the center. If you're not comfortable doing that, then don't do that either. So next we'll stick it in here. and hook up the step motor. Be sure to orient the step motor in the correct direction so that your wiring is facing towards the wiring harness. Also, make sure you start all your screws before you tighten any of them down. Before moving on to the next step, make sure you got freedom of movement. Everything works well. If not, just start again and make sure it works right. And now we'll add the nuts and screws to hold the table on. These nuts have a beveled edge on one side and a flat on the other. Make sure the beveled edge is facing upward. Okay, I had a little problem with these sliders. 3 of the holes weren't large enough to accept the screw, so I had to drill them out with my 3/8 drill. I think I used a 3/16 bit, maybe something a little smaller. If you're not comfortable drilling them out, you might want to check with a local machine shop and see if they can do it for you. Now we're going to install this table. I've never seen any easy way to do this except for this. Okay, when you're done, make sure your table will move. You don't have it bound. Only trick I can say to get this table on is to keep it nice and level, plenty of slack in your screws, and make sure you have it centered. Okay, step 3 is putting on this side piece without the bearing in it. Step motor is in the rear. This will be your right side as you're facing the front. Put the piece through, the screws through the part. Also got a beveled edge, make sure the beveled edge is facing upward. And start it on your screw. The nut will fit in this rail, and as you tighten it, it will turn and lock into this, so it's kind of foolproof. Make sure you start with the nuts all running this direction, and then place it in the slot, and then get it snug but not tight. You want to measure forward on the inside of this back piece 45 millimeters to this edge. Okay, step 4 is pretty hairy. We're going to solve the XYZ axis here. We have a step motor, another coupler, several screws, 2 supports, 2 rods, 1 threaded rod, brass bushing, T-nut, a spring, and we have all of our tools laid out. First thing we'll do is install the threaded rod into this T-nut. Next we'll put the bushing on the motor. Next we'll finger tighten the screws in place. Now we'll put the threaded rod in the sleeve. Tight the set screws. Now we'll slide these rods through. And secure them. Now we'll add the 2 supports in the rear. Okay, make sure you keep the 2 supports in the rear nice and square to the back edge. You'll be putting the board on here later. This isn't the only way to install this. You can put these together in any order. Supports, rods, threaded rod last. I just thought it would be easier to install the threaded rod on this brass nut first and then put it on the step motor. Okay, this is step 5. Install the second piece on this side. More of these little nuts to lock in here and the screws to all here. So let's get these ones started first. Make sure your beveled edge is facing upward. Again, make sure they're laying all straight in the same direction. And put it in the slots. Make sure you line up the threaded rod. Don't tighten these down all the way. Just get them to where they're not falling out. You still need to put the 4 screws in up here. Once you got all the screws started, now it's time to tighten down. Make sure you've got your 45 millimeters from the front of this back edge to the back of this. Okay, now is a good time to go around and tighten all these screws again to make sure they're all tight. You don't have to use every ounce of strength you have, just make sure they're nice and snug. Okay, next step is step 6, the spindle installation. You've got your power attachment prongs here on the top. Make sure they're in line like this. There's even a little sleeve on the outside. Make sure this edge will line up with the edge of this slot here. This is what it shows in the picture. Using a little screwdriver to pry this open slightly. The spindle falls in. There we go. And just make sure it's flush at the bottom. And then tighten down this set screw. Don't use every ounce of strength, it's just plastic. Okay, step 7 is installing the control board on the back here. And that's done with these screws and more of these fancy nuts. Okay, I couldn't get the screws to fit in the holes on the board, so I drilled them out with a larger bit. If you're not comfortable doing that, maybe you can go to the local machine shop and have them do it for you. Okay, we'll see a mistake I made here. There's 2 sets of holes on these uprights, and I put this in the lower one. It should be in the top. Let's replace that. Okay, the board is installed. It shows a little gap on one side. It doesn't say how big, but I guess it's just your personal preference where you want it. The last step is to wire the board. So the first thing I'm going to hook up is the spindle, which is this connector right here. It only goes in one direction, thank goodness. Otherwise, I'd probably be fighting with it all day. When you hook it to the spindle, there's actually a red and black. The red one will have a little red mark next to it. This one's just barely visible. And then the black one is the other. So make sure you have them hooked up correctly. Next we'll hook up the X, Y, and Z step motors. This is your Z motor, this is your Y motor, this is your X motor. And they're marked out on the thing from the rear, left to right, X, Y, and Z. These machines come with a lot of different boards, so the wiring might not be exact. Make sure you check your instructions and make sure your X, Y, Z, and power are in the positions that I've shown. If not, just follow your directions. Ignore what I've said. And our last connection will be the power supply. And that just plugs in here on the end. There's also an option for the offline controller, which I have, and that plugs in the bottom of the board in the center, at least on this unit. Okay, before I button up all the wiring, I want to make sure I've got it wired correctly. So I've got it plugged into my power supply. There's a power button in the rear, which was turned on. Be careful of that. Turn it on, the fan is running, the lights are on. Now I'm going to try to move the spindle. Kind of difficult to see the controller in the sunlight, but I finally got it to where I can control it. So now we'll start with the Z. That's Z positive, Z negative. Now we'll try Y positive, which should be forward to back. We'll try the X. X is working fine, but Y is off. We probably have it jammed. So I'll take that apart, loosen it up, and try again. First I'll turn the power off. Okay, so off camera I turned the machine upside down and loosened all the screws on this table and made sure the lead screw moved freely, and then tightened them down a little at a time until I got it right. Well, now Z axis. X axis, side to side. And Y axis, front to rear. Everything is wired correctly. Now we need to work on our software. Okay, I just ran my very first code. Screwed up the first time down here. I had the table too close to the back edge and it bottomed out, so I had to recenter, and I decided to move the tool up to home in this position instead. Just did the SainSmart etch. Turned out pretty good. I used a piece of painted 1x4 or 1x6 so I could see how well it would look after it was done. I'm going to try a couple other test projects before I do anything of my very own. Everything was pretty easy. The little thumb drive that came with it was in place of the CD. I just dropped everything on the desktop. Program runs straight out. Don't have to install it. Had to install the driver first. It was on COM 3 or 4 or something. I only had 2 USB ports, and they both are on the same COM, so no matter which one I chose, it was going to choose the machine. Had to reset that in the settings. Other than that, everything else worked fine. I'm going to try to run, maybe the circle one next and see how well it does. Okay, here's a SainSmart relief cutout. Took about 41 minutes. See, I had one false start here, and another one right behind it where the bit fell out. I didn't have the collet tightened well enough, and it was sticking out way too far. The third one here was doing just fine, but I didn't think it was working because I didn't realize at the beginning of this had such a flat area there. But once I realized what it was doing, I could let it run, and it seemed fine. I think I'm going to be happy with it.
Okay, here's a few final thoughts on my CNC router. These are the things I expected. I expected it to be very loud, but it's not what I would consider loud. Unless you're keeping it inside your house, then it might be a little loud, but it's in my garage and it's just fine. 2, I thought it would be a lot messier. Thought there'd be dust in the air, but then again, I was outside. 3, thought there would be a lot more problems with the software. I had momentary issues, but looked around and found the answer. A lot of people had trouble online and in the forums. And 4, I expected something to go horribly wrong, but luckily, just a few minor mishaps and everything was fine. Okay, and this is what I learned. 1, check all the screws. I forgot to tighten bolts on one of the step motors, but it wasn't really an issue. But I watched several videos, and each time someone left something loose, I should have known better. 2, the instructions are pretty clear, but only if you're used to using instructions that are presented that way. Some people need more instructions, some people don't need instructions at all. But I found it to be pretty easy to follow. But then again, I did watch several videos where people assembled the machine. 3, I will probably never use the offline controller unless I end up doing some sort of mass production of parts where I don't want to leave my computer sitting next to it all day long. Other than that, I don't really need it. 4, you can't be too prepared. Watch more than one assembly video. No one got it 100%, not even me. Okay, here are my plans. 1, I did add rubber feet to the bottom of it because I had them. 2, I would like to add some sort of dust collection. I've seen people 3D print adapters for their shop vac that fit on there, but I don't have a 3D printer. If I can find one cheap enough, I'll install it. Otherwise, I'll just continue using the can of compressed air. 3, a laser would be really cool. 4, I like a neat area, so I'll be making a box for all the tools and bits, of course using the CNC. And 5, new hold downs would be nice if they're better and inexpensive, but right now the ones that came with the machine are just fine for me. Thanks for watching.